Coming up next on Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable, the recount in Arizona's Congressional District 2 is officially underway, and the governor-elect decides on a former Speaker of the House to be his chief of staff. Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Bob Christie of the Associated Press. Well, the recount has begun in Arizona's 2nd Congressional District race between apparent winner Martha McSally and incumbent Ron Barber. And I guess, Mary Jo, we just wait this out, right?
Yes, there's a set time frame that the Secretary of State's office put out this week. December 16th is the end date. I suppose it's possible, or is the deadline. It's possible we might see something before then, but any announcement will come not from the county elections offices down there, not from Secretary of State, but from the court that is overseeing this recount.
And what's going to be interesting is we're already starting to see the seeds being planted for the next lawsuit. Questions of the law says you're supposed to use a different computer program for a recount. Well, the Secretary of State has decided to change some lines of code, and you've got a different program. Now, we already know that Ron Barber tried to go to the Supreme Court with that. They said, go back to the trial court and talk to them. So we could have the Congress convening in January, where we're not quite sure who's occupying that seat.
Well, we do know Martha McSally has been back to Washington. I mean, she is preparing for, I'm sure she's
right.
great.
She's been back there. She's been through freshman orientation. We haven't had word yet if she's hired staff. One would suspect not, because she hasn't been formally declared the winner yet. She's 161 votes ahead. History says that probably won't change. I mean, if you look, I looked at the last 8 recounts, and none of them moved by that margin. None of them. And so there has been one that turned over, but there was only 4 or 5. It moved a total of like 18 votes.
Legislative race.
The legislative race. For Barber, he's almost running out of, I mean, if he doesn't win in the recount, then he's left with Hail Mary passes to the courts.
Do we know what happened to those 133 contested ballots?
Oh,
yes.
We do?
The 133 contested ballots, those are provisional ballots which were not counted for various reasons, primarily because they were voted in the improper precinct. Under the election rules that are adopted by the Secretary of State and have the force of law, they were not counted because they were voted in the wrong district or in the wrong precinct. And his efforts to try to get them counted failed at 3 different levels, I believe.
And what's crazy, though, is that if you have an early ballot, you can drop it off at any precinct. And so our election laws are severely in need of update to try to figure out how it works. I mean, there are a lot of counties that are doing the vote any place. It's all done by computer. You walk into any polling place, you can vote any time. And so to the extent that if you want to enfranchise voters, then you find ways to include their votes, not to exclude them.
But just to make it clear now, those 133 votes, they will not come back into play?
I see no, barring a federal court has said no. We don't step into garden variety election disputes. There's nothing statewide that would trigger that I can see, or that their lawyers see. They've told me they're not going to appeal the federal judge's ruling from earlier this week that said no, we're not going to count those. They're following the election code as it's adopted by the state of Arizona, and those ballots are not legally cast, so they won't be counted.
So, but this is just another lawsuit waiting to happen, is it not?
Probably, but you've got to think, 133 votes, even if they were all for Barber, which is hard to believe, he still trails by 161. So then you would have to hope that the recount would find, 30 odd, probably 60 to 70, votes that would flip in a recount.
Which could happen. I mean, you remember he won by 6. McSally won 60% to 40% in Cochise County, but they picked up all their ballots and sent them to
Graham.
I always Greenlee or Graham, one of those. And now they're using their own machines again. So I suppose there's a slight possibility.
This is what's fascinating. We all joke about hanging chads and trying to figure out what the ballot means. But what's fascinating to me all the time is every time I've seen a recount, the numbers come out different. Same machines. And so, which
Do
suggests
they come out
something-
considerably different?
Not considerably different, but it suggests that if you ran the same things through 5 different times and came up with 5 different numbers, is there something problematic here? Not enough to upset a lot of races, but it does suggest that perhaps these machines, for all of their talk, and I'm not even going to get into the conspiracy theories on how people of black boxes have engineered there, but that all this idea of machine counting being more accurate, maybe not.
Well, here's the interesting thing about the recount. This is how it works. They run all of the ballots through the machine again, counting only the 2nd Congressional District ballots. Then they choose 5% of the precincts, and they do a hand count. And they choose that 5% of the precincts. They count them by hand with observers, just like you saw in Florida. Everybody agrees this is for Barber, this is McSally. And if that 5% is within a variance, which is very small, 10 votes or 5 votes, of what the machine said, then we're good to go. If it's not, you choose another 5%. If it's not, you choose another 5%. And you could theoretically end up hand counting the entire 219,700 odd votes.
Yeah.
Makes an argument for congressional terms to be longer than 2 years, huh?
No kidding, yeah. Although it also makes the argument that redistricting in this particular case worked pretty well. I mean, you had a pretty good race down there.
You sure did. And here's the deal. There was no Libertarian, and Democrats didn't turn out. And this time the Republican won.
All right, let's keep it moving here. There looks to be a new chief of staff in town, and he looks to be like the old Speaker of the House. Kirk Adams is going to join the Ducey admin. Talk to us about
Yes,
this.
this is the first major announcement the Governor-elect Ducey has made, and he's tapped former House Speaker Kirk Adams to be his chief of staff, which is very interesting. Adams is no stranger to the Capitol. He served about 5.5 years in the legislature. Most importantly, I think, he was Speaker during the last big budget crisis and budget deficits, had to deal with that. In fact, presided over, in 2009, a year when the legislature was in session, I think, every month except November. Adams is the one that reminded me of that because he had to live through all that. Well, they might be back in that same situation again. And also, since he's only somewhat recently departed, he knows a lot of these lawmakers. He served with them.
Yeah, he does bring his own history with him. Now remember, Kirk was one of the architects of the tax cuts that are now kicking in now through 2017. So we know where he stands on issues of tax cuts, and that we're going to keep stimulating the economy until we get the tax rate down to 0 and are infinitely wealthy. The other interesting bit of baggage, if you will, that comes with him is his association with some Koch brothers financed campaigns. And given that Ducey got himself in a little bit of a PR with the videotape of him at one of these Koch brothers beauty pageants saying, "Oh, I love you guys, I'm glad we're here," it makes a lot of people wonder, exactly what influence the Koch brothers are going to have up on the 9th floor.
And wasn't there this fine in California, $1 million fine regarding campaign
This goes back 4 years, I believe, to a proposition in California. The group that Kirk Adams was running was funneling money from the Koch brothers through a couple of different things and spending it on that initiative. It failed, but they came back and said, "We think it's election fraud. We think you're churning money," and he ended up paying $1 million fine.
Well, there's another little piece of it back to Arizona. The same groups were funneling money into the anti-Prop 204 campaign. This was the one to extend and make permanent the 1-cent sales tax. And because our laws aren't as good as California, we couldn't quite find out where the money was coming from, but a lot of it was funneled through some of the things that Kirk was doing.
And I think real tellingly, that shows you that Adams and Ducey are aligned in certainly in how they viewed that issue of education finance, because Prop 204 was to make permanent a 1-cent sales tax increase, mostly to help education. Adams ran the committee that brought the big bucks that helped to beat that, and Ducey was the chairman of it. And they're also of a mind on tax cuts.
And that's what I was going to ask. That's exactly what I was going to ask. What does this signal as far as business tax cuts, which Adams shepherded in? What does this mean as far as education is concerned? Perhaps a sales tax? It doesn't sound like either one of us has any chance.
No. Well, here's the deal. Governor-elect Ducey campaigned. We all know his slogan: "I built a company, now I want to shrink a government." Here we have Kirk Adams, who shrunk a government. But what I'm struggling with is, I don't think Governor Brewer has left a lot of fat on the table. They cut $3 billion out of the budget back in 2009, 2010 It's grown a little bit since then, but and Governor-elect Ducey has said, well, I'm going to go through all of the departments that report direct to the governor, and I'm not going to replace. There's going to be 27% of the state workforce that's due to retire, but I don't see any of that happening quickly enough to really
and
rescue
not just
us.
quickly enough, let's come back to that 27%. I have to assume that some percentage of these people are actually doing something, whether they're screening people for eligibility for something, and you can you can do a lot by computer, but there are certain things you actually need warm bodies for. But we're suffering from the same thing. Look, we went through this with Fred Duval, the same issues, that everyone has this idea that there must be waste in there. Procurement reform was Fred's big issue. There isn't that much there. Look, Brewer did actually on that $3 billion was sort of interesting. She's a pragmatist. She cut $1 billion, she borrowed $1 billion, so we're sort of out of borrowing options. And then we did the 1 cent sales tax to try to get us through it. That's gone.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, I don't think we're going to see any appetite from Governor Ducey to roll back these tax cuts or to delay these tax cuts that are yet to phase in. Those things are, there's an argument that these need to happen because it gives predictability to the business community as the economy is rebounding. You want to keep that signal out there. You might argue that it doesn't make any sense, but I think that's.
Yeah,
I don't think you're going to. They're just not going to count.
Yeah, I agree philosophically. They're going to have a hard time doing that. I'm waiting for the 12th of January when we see a budget, because I don't know how they're going to do it.
But now we get into the other shoe that was dropping, which has to do with the $1 billion we may still owe schools.
Well, before you go there,
Yeah.
am I the only one who wonders, when I keep hearing of the Arizona comeback and how we balanced the budget and how we were so responsible with this and X, Y, and Z, were we that responsible when it finds out we weren't even paying the bills as far as education was concerned?
Well, there's a couple of answers to that. We paid, as Mary Jo knows, we paid some bills. We also borrowed a lot of money.
But you didn't pay the proper bill, and now the proper bill has come to.
The budget, was not structurally balanced. What it took to get out of the deficits and the Great Recession, with a lot of gimmicks, a lot of borrowing, all the things that how we, a tax increase, and those things got Arizona through and sort of up back to somewhat of a level place. But it all was counting on an economy that would take off at a much faster clip than what we've seen. And the most recent forecast is saying, well, there's going to be growth, but it's just going to keep inching along.
Our budget is based on a 5% growth, which historically for Arizona in a good economic situation is pretty darn good. It's much better than any other states. Well, we're going to grow at 2%. So that's that revenue growth that the whole budget is built on is not there. And the other issue is really, I lost my train of thought.
Well, but but again, talking to Doug Ducey right after the election, he says if we can goose that 2.5% to 3%, maybe we can get $500 million right there. This is all very nice on paper. The other issue, and go back to the Arizona comeback, Governor Brewer is saying, well, I didn't know the recession was going to last as long and as deep as it did, so therefore that's why I didn't end my term with a truly balanced budget, which ignores the fact that most of the other states have in fact recovered.
and
the jobs have
that's
recovered. We're
my
still
question.
only at 55, 56% of the jobs recovered.
Well, the economists, there was an economic forecast luncheon put on by ASU's business school this week, which Howie and I and someone from the Republic attend every year. Here's the issue. Construction has not come back. We've only gained 8% of our construction jobs back. We're still 70,000 jobs below what we were in 2008 when the recession hit. And people aren't moving here for various reasons, some of which has to do with 1070. We've made ourselves, to a lot of extent, unpopular.
I think that it shows that it's not just taxes that attract business here. There are other factors, tangible, intangible things that can be affected by your governing bodies. Maybe some things that you can't. Some people don't like the summers. Transportation corridors, access to a port, education system,
and that's exactly
the business community is really hammering on the schools. Duval, some of Duval's backing was from folks who said, look, And his whole mantra was, we've got to fix the schools if businesses are going to come here. And I think the chamber sort of agrees too. And,
As far as the budget is concerned, Doug, and this is basically what we're talking about here, I mean, is Medicaid expansion in jeopardy? Is behavioral health in jeopardy? Is the new child protect? What is not in jeopardy?
Everything, as they say, is on the table. Now, the problem with dealing with Medicaid expansion is if you scrap Medicaid expansion, you're scrapping the couple of $100 million a year that
Yes,
comes
you
in
are.
from the tax on the hospitals, which actually pays for it. Now, the courts may
it's
end
an
up doing that.
assessment, Howie.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yes.
And it not only pays for it, it brings in it brings in more money than it spends out. So
Right.
they're
It's a net
balancing the
plus.
budget with some of that hospital assessment. So unless the courts throw that out, which we'll expect the Supreme Court to deal with the Medicaid expansion shortly,
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to touch Medicaid expansion for a couple of years until
But
the
that
federal
still leaves, as you pointed out, behavioral health, CPS or Department of Children's Services, things like that. Look, there are going to be a lot of folks after having gone through the pain to get to where we are. It'll be over Kate Brophy McGee's cold dead body that they start cutting back, even as they're just staffing up
Oh, on child welfare.
on the
Right,
child
yeah.
welfare.
But something is going to have to get cut.
Yes, something, it's many things are going to
Yes.
have to be cut, and they're going to have to be cut in a big way. If you rule out revenue tax increases, unless there's some magical new revenue source that appears. If Congress passes the Marketplace Fairness Act and all of a sudden we can tax internet purchases, but
Right, and-
even if that happens,
That's not the kind of thing that these lawmakers would be celebrating.
no, well, and
No.
it would take a while. Everything's going to, anything
And-
that would be
and
significant would
Governor
take a while.
Ducey told me when I talked to him, he says, you know what? Some good economic news changes a lot of things.
So we
Well,
pray, it's like praying
we
for rain.
But when is that good economic news
Well,
going
we
to
haven't
happen?
seen it yet. And as Howie mentioned, a lot of states who went through the same thing that Arizona went through over the last 7 or 8 years now have surpluses. California has a surplus. Many other states have these surpluses. In fact, some of the questions that their legislatures are dealing with is, well, what do we do with the surplus? And
Yeah.
and one of the problems is Arizona, as we've come back, they've cut the legs out from under the revenue stream. So every year when we get a little bit of a boost in revenue from normal growth, there's a tax cut that goes into effect in every year. And it's a permanent shrinkage of government, which is not philosophical. It's not by accident.
Yeah, and that was the idea. We get a chance to shrink government. Corporate income taxes are going to drop by 30%. Individual income taxes are going down. Business property taxes are going down. There's this whole litany of things that are kicking in. And what we've got, and heaven forgive me for saying it this way, I think we've got a lot of optimistic whistling here. You've got Doug Ducey saying, but we're going to have the Super Bowl here. Okay, that gets us some nice PR. Does it translate into more than just one shot on taxes? And in fact, the Super Bowl, the NFL negotiated some tax breaks so that they don't pay taxes on some of the stuff. So
Right.
what are we getting other than pictures of sunshine?
Answer me this: Who is coming up with the next budget? I'm a little confused by this.
Well, Governor Brewer and her staff are working on a budget. They will present that to Governor-elect Ducey, and he will use that as a draft, and then a platform on which to build, add, subtract his own preferences. The common link there is that John Arnold, who's been the governor's budget director, is also working on Ducey's transition team on budget matters. They brought back Eileen Klein to oversee the transition committee. She was Brewer's, before Arnold, she was Brewer's budget chief, so there's some commonality there. There's also two key people with Klein and Arnold who know a lot about the budget. But the budget we will see will be a Doug Ducey budget. What will be the Jan Brewer imprint? I think she gave us a couple of ideas this week on what she would like, what she wants to protect in that budget. But even those protected items, she acknowledges are going to have to be cut.
Yeah, and that's the
And that's
thing.
education, that's child welfare, and that's behavioral health.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If we have a $9.3 billion spending plan right now, and you've got to cut $500 million of that for the next 6 months. Now we've got the rainy day fund, and that may get us past that. But you're looking at $1 billion next year, 1/9 of the budget, that's a pretty big cut. And if you're unwilling to consider revenue enhancements, and that's not even counting our school funding
And real
problems.
quickly, the school funding, the courts are basically, where are we standing with that?
Well, last year the Supreme Court said to the legislature, that part where the voters approved something in 2000 said inflation adjustment? whap, 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 whap. You ignored it. So it sent it back to trial court. Judge Catherine Cooper has already ruled that you've got to rebase the funding to where it would have been had the lawmakers complied with the law all along. It's about $336 million this year, the same amount on and on and on ad infinitum. Now we're fighting about the $1 billion they didn't get during that time period. Now what's fascinating is that the attorneys for the state, the legislature, are saying, well, it's impossible for us to do this. To which Don Peters, who is the attorney for the school, said, no, it's not impossible. You could cut or you could raise revenues. You may not like it, but not wanting to do it is not a legal defense.
Correct. And you know, this is all in Judge Cooper's lap. It's going to be, I mean, there is no middle ground for the judge in this. She's either going to let the state off the hook of the repaying this $1 billion, or it's going to throw a huge monkey wrench into what, as we've all been discussing, is already a big budget hole.
But it doesn't have to be, if she rules the latter way, the state doesn't necessarily have to pay it all at once. There could be a plan. There could be a payment plan, just like any
The payment
loan,
plan is
debt
in
you
the
owe.
court document.
Right.
It's over 5 years. So
Okay.
instead of $330 million, it's $500 million a year over 5 years.
Such a deal. Good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you for joining us on Arizona Horizon. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.